Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The chain slid shut as my key stalled. I'm Alex Morin, 34. The door opened a hand's width. My wife pressed a suitcase into my chest. "You're done here," she whispered, and the chain held. I set the suitcase down slow. My name on the lease burned my tongue. She fed me my wallet through the gap. The deadbolt clicked with a final tap. Footsteps moved behind her like an answer. "Move the chain." My fist rested on the frame, her eyes held and then slipped away. A deeper voice coughed from the hallway. My skin went tight and she smiled. "You'll be fine tonight." Her fingers trembled once, then steadied. A key fob chirped in the garage. Her hand hovered over the chain. I heard my future starting up. "Open it." My voice stayed even. The suitcase thudded to the mat like a warning. The hallway went quiet behind her. I heard the elevator arrive and stop. She pushed the door wider by an inch. "Take care of yourself." She looked past me to the stairs. The chain scraped as if thinking. I stepped back one pace and she closed. I caught the door before the latch ceded. The edge bit my palm and shook. 1 minute. Her jaw tightened and relaxed. The elevator chimed again like a timer expiring. She pried my fingers off and locked it fully. My phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Her note read review night at 7. Another buzz followed with a rideshare receipt. Pickup matched our building, destination downtown. Patterns formed faster than guilt. I took the stairs 2 at a time. The garage door rolled up halfway. A black sedan idled near the exit. The back door opened with practiced ease. No one waved me in. She crossed the concrete fast and light. He trailed a step behind without hurry. They did not touch, which said plenty. She glanced toward the stairwell once. I stayed in shadow and counted breaths. He held the car door like a trophy. She slid inside without speaking. He followed on the other side. The sedan eased out like it belonged. I memorized the plate because I had to. I hit the street with no plan. Rain started thin and immediate, and I ran. Their tail lights bled into the next block. A cab crawled by and blocked my view. I cut across and risked a horn. My phone maps pulsed on my palm. The rideshare app showed the same hotel. I screenshotted the route before it vanished. The driver turned left toward downtown. I jogged right and hunted angles. At the corner, I flagged a rideshare. The driver frowned at my soaked shirt. "Follow that car," I said quiet. He stared 1 second and shrugged. The meter ticked as the chase began. We hung 2 cars back at lights. The sedan never hesitated once. It knew the way like routine. My chest hammered a steady beat. I chose silence because I needed room. Downtown rose and folded around us. The sedan slipped beneath a portico and stopped. He stepped out first and checked his watch. She emerged second and fixed her sleeve. My jaw set as doors revolved. I exited before my car fully stopped. The doorman lifted a finger without commitment. I passed him and leaned near a column. They walked shoulder to shoulder but not touching. Distance can be a louder tell. He murmured something short and low. She laughed once and looked down. My stomach pitched, then leveled. I started recording with my phone. Evidence beats rage when careers are involved. They approached the elevators with business faces. A security camera blinked above the panel. He pressed the button and glanced around. She adjusted her hair and avoided mirrors. I watched numbers climb as doors closed. I checked the lobby for exits and eyes. The night clerk kept typing without pause. A water dispenser dripped in short bursts. I replayed the clip and trimmed the start. The cut looked clean and necessary. The elevator returned empty after 3 minutes. He came down alone and scanned the lounge. He called someone and said, "Kiddo." The word landed like a slap without heat. He smiled and walked toward the bar. I pocketed the phone and moved outside. The rain had thickened into a steady sheet. I stood under the awning and counted taxis. Anger cooled into something colder and sharper. I knew this was the first step. A new notification lit the screen. Message from her with 4 words. "Take care of yourself tonight." I sent back the hotel address. Her typing bubble appeared and died. My driver looped back and rolled down. "You good?" He looked me over once. "Not yet," I said and nodded. He waited for a beat and left. I stayed because leaving would mean denial. The sedan pulled around for a fresh ticket. The valet scribbled fast and looked confused. I filmed the time stamp and plate. I captured the driver handing over a slip. Patterns love proof more than witnesses. I walked to the side entrance. A service hallway hummed and breathed heat. Staff pushed a cart toward the kitchen. I blended against a pillar and listened. 2 servers whispered about floor 14. I found the stairwell and started climbing. The air grew heavy and hot. My shirt stood. CK and slowed my arms. I gripped the railing and counted floors. Every step felt like a contract. 14 opened into quiet carpeted space. A housekeeper's cart blocked half the hall. I paused and listened for footsteps. A door clicked somewhere close and stopped. Keys jingled with careful hands. I leaned back into the stairwell shadow. The door across cracked and showed nothing. A laugh escaped, then smothered fast. The lock turned again with a soft bump. I recorded the sound like a metronome. The peephole of the nearest room darkened. Someone inside watched the corridor with patience. I stood still and became uninteresting. The peephole cleared and the corridor breathed. I moved only when the air allowed. An exit sign blinked once, then steadied. My phone vibrated with low battery warning. I ignored it because timing mattered more. The door with the laugh stayed quiet. Silence has a schedule when people hide. I took 3 photos of the hallway, door numbers, elevator placement, exit path. No faces, only context that proves position. I lowered the phone and memorized the sequence. Fear became focus and stayed put. A housekeeping supervisor turned the corner fast, clipboard up, eyes scanning for problems. "You lost." Her tone carried rule and boredom. I nodded and pointed to the elevator. She kept walking and checked the cart. I pressed the call button and waited. The doors opened on a family in swimsuits. They spilled out laughing and dripping. I stepped in and hit the lobby. My hands shook and I liked it. The clerk looked up when I approached. "Need a printout?" I kept my voice flat. "Rideshare receipt for this address?" He blinked, then pointed to the business center. I walked there and kept filming edges. The printer spat a test page first. I canceled it and sent my file. My phone struggled but pushed it through. The sheet slid out with the timestamp. I folded it once and breathed slow. I left through the side door again. The sedan still waited under cover. He emerged from the bar carrying nothing. He checked messages and smiled at something. I stepped into rain and felt ready. This is how the night started, not with screaming or smashed dishes, with locks and schedules and quiet choices. I understood the shape of the next move, the part where revenge stops being theory. I cued the clip and dialed their ethics line. The recording beeped once and I began. Dates, locations, positions, all crisp. I ended with the plate numbers and room floor. The silence after the tone felt loaded. A case number arrived by text within minutes. I saved it and opened a new folder, screenshots stacked like tiles as I worked. Each one answered a future denial. I kept moving before doubt caught up. I booked a day pass near their office. The lobby filled with badges and guarded smiles. I scanned the directory and chose human resources. The elevator doors split and swallowed a crowd. I rode up with my jaw locked. The assistant looked me over and checked her list. No appointment? Her eyebrow ticked once. I slid the case number across the counter. She read it twice and stood fast. A manager appeared with practiced calm. We walked into a small conference room. Frosted glass blurred the hallway and footsteps. I placed the phone face up and pressed play. The clipped laughter from last night filled the space. The manager paused the video and stared through me. "What outcome are you seeking?" Her hands folded, knuckles tight. I avoided the obvious answer and breathed once. Safeguards, disclosures, clean boundaries. I wanted structure that would trap them later. She asked for supporting records and exact hours. I slid over the ride log and receipt. I showed the case number and timestamps. She asked to copy them through a secure drive. I agreed because I planned 3 moves ahead. I left without small talk and headed outside. The rain had paused and traffic surged. My phone vibrated with a new email. Their investigation had started, contact restricted, confidentiality active. Words that signal momentum when used carefully. I crossed the street and called the client office. A switchboard connected me to vendor oversight. I represent a concerned party with documentation. My voice carried that steady courtroom tone. They asked for a package within the hour. I found a print shop near the tram stop. Pages rolled out while I drafted a cover note. Concise language, no adjectives beyond necessary. I stapled proof to each section and sealed. The counter clerk watched without questions. Back on the sidewalk, I met a courier. He scanned the label and promised direct delivery. I photographed his ID and tracking code. Another layer of accountability slipped into place. I felt the turn beginning under my feet. My phone buzzed with a private message. "Can we talk off the record?" The name belonged to her teammate from onboarding. I answered with a meet spot across the river. She replied with a single word and 3 dots. She arrived wearing nerves and purpose. "I cannot get dragged into this." She glanced around and sank onto a bench. I gave her the case number and nothing else. She exhaled and handed me a list of vendors. "Check these approvals against expense claims." Her foot tapped while she watched the water. I copied them before everything got weird. She stood quickly and adjusted her blazer. "If they ask, you never saw me." I printed the list at a self-service kiosk, cross-referenced in my head and circled overlaps. 2 firms repeated near every big spend. One matched his golf charity and leadership board. The other routed invoices through a shell address. I called the ethics line again and appended details. New attachment, vendor repetition, potential self-dealing. My voice stayed even though my heart raced. The agent thanked me and upgraded the priority. The word upgrade tasted like progress. A calendar alert popped from my shared account. She had scheduled an off-site at a coworking space. I booked a desk in the same building. I walked in early and waited near reception. Waiting gives pressure a place to pool. She entered with quick steps and neutral eyes. Our gazes collided, then skipped off. "You cannot stalk me." Her fingers tightened around her tote. I kept my hands open and visible. "I want the lease correction in writing." My tone stayed flat and firm. "And I want the dog access today." She weighed her options and checked the room. "Not here," she muttered and moved to the elevator. I followed with space between us. The doors closed and we stood apart. "It will get worse if you push." Her reflection avoided mine and focused on numbers. The car stopped at a high floor and released us. Inside a small breakout room, she squared up. "He will protect me." Her voice tried for certainty and missed. "Your safety net is burning." I kept my voice low and unshaken. She flinched, then reached for her phone. A notification flashed on her screen like a flare. "Internal audit request, immediate response required." She swallowed and locked the screen. "You did this." Her whisper carried fury and fear. "I started a process that protects clients." The words came clean because they were true. "Your part can be honest or obstructive." She pressed her lips together and looked past me. Her heel tapped a staccato rhythm that betrayed panic. "Leave me out of your revenge." She tried to walk past and bumped my shoulder. I stepped aside and pointed at the door. "Return the keys today, then we are done." She paused and pocketed the phone with shaking hands. "Tonight," she opened the door and faced the hallway. "You'll get what you want." She left without looking back. The promise felt brittle enough to snap. I sat for 1 minute and reviewed the tape. No gloating, no grand speeches, just proof. The case was building in clean layers. My anger cooled into disciplined resolve. People underestimate quiet. An email arrived from vendor oversight. They asked for a call in 30 minutes. I booked a private booth and prepared a summary, just facts and patterns and inconsistencies. I let the weight rest on their side. The call connected with 2 compliance leads. I walked them through the document trail. They fed me questions that aimed at control gaps. I answered with times and crosslinks and recorded routes. At the end, they asked me to remain reachable. Outside the booth, I noticed him at reception. He argued with the front desk through clenched teeth. "I am here for a private meeting." He flashed a badge from a national association. The receptionist kept the same calm tone. I shifted behind a column and hit record. He demanded a room and placed a call. His posture screamed entitlement as he paced. Security drifted closer without saying a word. He sensed it and lowered his voice. He turned and spotted me halfway hidden. A narrow smile cut across his face. He approached with measured steps and extended a hand. I did not take it and kept the phone visible. His eyes flicked to the camera and hardened. Careful, he leaned in until our shoulders almost touched. You think truth matters in this town? His breath ran warm and unpleasant. Reputation matters more and mine is bulletproof. Bulletproof things still crack under audit. I held his stare until he blinked. Return my key set today. He laughed once and adjusted his cuff. You will regret this amateur move. Security asked if everything was all right. He flashed another smile and backed off. All good. He walked toward the exit with stiff shoulders. I sent the recording to the case file with a note. His mask had finally slipped on camera. My phone rang with a blocked number. We received multiple reports involving your spouse and a superior. The voice held legal caution and steady diction. Please retain all materials and avoid direct confrontation. I agreed and documented the instruction on the spot. I left the building and headed to my friend's place. On the way, I grabbed a cheap prepaid, fresh number, clean text. TS, no shared accounts. I transferred copies and locked them with a code, insurance for the next strike. Halfway down the block, my screen lit up again. Meet me at the apartment at 6. Short message, no pleasantries, pure task. I replied with a single word and a period. She read it and went quiet. I had 2 hours before that meeting, enough time to open a safe deposit box. I stored the drive and a printed index. I kept only the phone and the prepaid. If someone grabbed me later, they would find nothing. At 5:50, I stood outside our door. The lock clicked and opened without delay. She held the leash and a small envelope. Take them and go. Her voice showed cracks she could not hide. I reached out and took both. I did not step inside and stir old air. She watched for a plea that never came. There is a letter from legal in the mail. Her words tumbled, then steadied. You will receive it tomorrow. I will read it when it arrives. I clipped the leash and waited for the dog. He trotted out and pressed against my leg. She looked at him and bit her lip. A tiny sound escaped before she shut it down. I turned away and started down the hall. Behind me, the latch slid and locks engaged. My chest tightened, then loosened as I walked. The envelope weighed less than my next choice. I knew where to deliver it first. I slid the envelope across the compliance counter. The clerk checked the seal and scanned the barcode. Acknowledged. A receipt printed with a unique string. I pocketed it and watched the door to the back hall. Outside, I called the landlord's attorney from the curb. Confirm the correction and send written proof. The pause felt like a test of nerve. Check your inbox in 1 hour. I set a countdown and kept moving. I booked a meeting room near our building. A small recorder lay under a coaster and waited. She arrived late with clipped steps and stiff shoulders. Return the second fob today. Her eyes flashed, then cooled fast. You think you can push me? She stood too close and squared her jaw. I will protect what is mine. My silence stretched until she shifted weight. That wobble was worth more than insults. Her phone vibrated twice with a restricted alert. She read, blinked, locked the screen hard. Stop feeding outsiders. A vein pulsed at her temple. The recorder caught every syllable and the tremor after. I exited first and turned right toward reception. He stepped from an alcove and blocked my line. Walk with me. His smile looked painted on. My palms stayed open while my pulse climbed. We moved into a stairwell that smelled like damp concrete. You want an agreement. His hands spread like a dealmaker's cheat. You get a check and you disappear. I studied his face and said nothing. She keeps her role and you stop this? He leaned closer and lowered his voice. You also stay away from my team. I tapped the railing once and held his gaze. Text me the offer for my attorney. He laughed too loudly and broke the moment. The echo drew a guard to the landing above. Everything all right down there? The guard peered over the rail. He smoothed his tie and waved him off. I walked away without looking back. In the lobby, I requested camera footage from the desk. Public area incident, please preserve. The supervisor nodded and filled out a form. Preservation beats memory when stories shift. Across the street, a teammate waited with a coffee. She handed me a printout and scanned the windows. Conference room bookings by his assistant. Blocks matched nights I documented. 2 included catering for 2 with no meeting host. Send this through the portal using that case code. Her hands shook as she typed. I want this anonymous or I am done. I checked the metadata and chose blind upload. The progress bar crept and then turned green. A number I did not recognize flashed and rang again. Delete your files and accept the settlement. The voice used a cheap distortion that clipped vowels, or the next call will be from a detective. The line clicked dead before I could breathe. I walked to a patrol car parked by the entrance. I received a threat related to a company probe. The officer took notes and asked for the number. He logged it and requested I forward the recording. Paper trails are boring until they save you. My email pinged with a calendar invite from audit. Neutral office, short slot, 2 staffers. I arrived 10 minutes early and placed documents in a neat stack. They entered with crisp expressions and guarded curiosity. I kept my responses narrow and verifiable. They placed a printout on the table and tapped a field. Her approval ID sat under a hospitality voucher. The cost matched a vendor dinner tied to his foundation. Was this event personal or business? I pointed to the invitation list and shrugged once. Thank you, that's enough for today. One of them closed a folder with care. You may be contacted by external counsel. I nodded and asked for retention instructions in writing. They agreed and escorted me to the hall without small talk. On the sidewalk, my phone vibrated again. Meet at the park in 30 minutes. I arrived to find her near the fountain. She handed over a small drive with rigid fingers. Old phone backup, do not contact me again. Who asked you to wipe chat history? I kept my tone quiet and steady. She stared at the ground and blinked hard. A message came from his burner. Her voice cracked and then rebuilt itself. You know what happens if you comply? She inhaled and stared past my shoulder. I know. She pushed the drive into my palm. I need you to stop before this buries me. That choice was yours yesterday. The wind snapped across the water and made her flinch. I will use only what concerns the money. She nodded once and walked away like her feet hurt. I watched until she cleared the gate. 2 blocks later, a car rolled behind me too slow. I crossed between buses and checked the mirrors. The car idled at the corner and waited. I snapped 3 photos and ducked into a shop. The engine revved and vanished down the next street. An officer called about a report filed in my name, allegations of harassment at a coworking facility. I requested the timestamp and location. He read it and paused. The footage shows the reverse. He cleared the note and thanked me for the clip. Back at the bank, I accessed the box and added the new drive. I updated the index and sealed it again. My anger had evolved into something lean and controlled. I could feel my old life shedding in layers. The next move required a bigger audience. That night, I filed a formal whistleblower notice with the board. Attachments loaded in a precise sequence and numbered cleanly. I included the stairwell audio and the parking timestamps. I ended with a single line about retaliation risk. 10 minutes later, an emergency session hit my inbox. I joined the emergency session from a rented booth. Faces appeared in neat squares with tight jaws. Council opened with conflicts and retention orders. My uploads were confirmed and logged in sequence. They moved to sanctions before anyone exhaled. A director muted the room and asked one question. Are there undisclosed relationships affecting spend? Outside counsel glanced right, then nodded once. Temporary leave hit him like a gavel. They scheduled interviews that night and kept me on. I stepped out and called the oversight lead. Courier delivered, tracking verified, chain intact. He thanked me and requested a fresh clip. I sent the lobby confrontation with a short note. He answered with 3 words that felt heavy. An alert flashed from my bank app. Unrecognized attempt flagged under our joint account. I froze the card and documented the screen. I forwarded it to legal with time and location. Pressure shifts when money stops moving. Her message hit seconds later with 2 syllables. Why block? I replied with the safeguard language from counsel. She read it and stayed online. 3 dots pulsed and then died. Fear tastes different when it touches cash. I walked to the precinct with my prints. The detective on duty skimmed the threat transcript. He asked whether I expected escalation tonight. Yes. He entered a notation and issued a reference number. That number felt like body armor. Outside, a rideshare braked hard beside me. The rear window slid down an inch. Step in or you will regret this. The voice belonged to a proxy with dead eyes. I lifted my phone higher and filmed the plate. The car bolted and clipped a cone. I added the clip to my running dossier. A new email arrived from Security Forensics. They requested my original files for hash comparison. I uploaded the lot to their vault and logged out. I crossed to a co-op workspace near headquarters. Inside, a receptionist handed me a visitor wristband. Conference room 4, expect 2 guests. I sat facing the entrance with the recorder ready. The room door opened on time like a queue. 2 partners from the client took seats and waited. We need specific evenings and cost centers. I placed a timeline with clean spacing. 1 partner checked her phone and tightened her grip. We may sever ties before morning if verified. We finished in 20 minutes and exchanged acknowledgments. In the hall, I ran into him again. He wore calm like borrowed clothes. Walk away and I will make you whole. His composure cracked when he clocked my camera. Your leverage is imaginary until the board finishes. He breathed through his nose and stared past me. You are not built for this level. I held silence until he misread it as doubt. Predators hate mirrors that talk back. My phone rang with a blocked corporate line. Please come to reception with identification. I followed the instructions and presented my card. Security briefed me on protective measures for the evening. They posted a guard near the shared lobby which said plenty. I texted her a single instruction about the lease addendum. She responded with a blurry photo of signed pages. I forwarded it to the landlord attorney. A confirmation chimed while I waited near the elevator. Small wins stack when you stay boring. A junior analyst approached me with twitchy energy. I should not be talking. He slipped a folded memo into my hand. Approvals routed through a shadow meeting group. Names I recognized sat in those circles like anchors. I photographed the memo and returned it. Upload through the portal, scrub your metadata. He nodded and vanished down the stairwell. I flagged the room number for preservation. Quiet people keep the best receipts when pushed. My attorney called right then with crisp orders. Do not engage, keep collecting, avoid solo meetings. He requested a copy of the lobby footage. I sent it while I scanned the corridor. The call ended with a warning about countersuits. Night fell fast because schedules compressed my world. A push notification from their newsroom hit my screen. Statement about independent review and interim leadership. Comments closed under the post within minutes. Silence is also a strategy when brand. Diaz Sheikh. She called from an unlisted number that used to be ours. He thinks you will fold by Friday. Her voice sounded tired but deliberate. Return the videos and take the offer. I let the pause grow until she began to fidget. I will return nothing during an investigation. I kept even cadence and no heat. You can help yourself by documenting instructions. She inhaled like she might do it, then the line cut with a muffled curse. A courier arrived at the co-op with a thick envelope. He asked for a signature with a blank stare, temporary restraining request based on fabricated stalking claims. I scanned the filing and smiled without humor. They filed it in the wrong county. I walked to the precinct and dropped the packet. The desk officer compared timestamps with my earlier report. He stapled a correction note to the complaint. False statements carry charges. He logged the mismatch and handed me a copy. Back at the workspace, an email from the board chair landed. We will need you in person at 7 a.m. I replied with availability and requested a secure room. They confirmed and attached a list of topics. The final item referenced retaliation by external parties. Before leaving, I scheduled public records pulls for charitable donations. I targeted entities that mirrored their expense patterns. The requests queued with automated confirmations. I set alerts for responses within the next day. Data has a way of inviting friends. On the sidewalk, I felt watched again. A different car rolled to a slow crawl. I turned my camera and walked toward it. The driver looked down and hit the accelerator. Fear turned into planning, which is a better fuel. My phone buzzed with a photograph from an unknown sender, two hands passing a company phone across a patio. The caption read, "Archived logs survive wipes." I asked for contact through the secure tip line. The reply came back with a case key. I forwarded everything to counsel and the investigative team. Then I walked to the bank for one final deposit. The clerk logged the package without meeting my eyes. Inside the box, the archive list grew teeth. Tomorrow, it would start biting back. I arrived at 6:55 and handed over my phone. A paralegal sealed it in a pouch and logged the time. The boardroom door opened and a recorder clicked on. Counsel gestured to the chair at the end. I sat and kept my hands flat. "Walk us through your timeline." The chair tapped a pen once. I laid out moments in strict order and paused often, screens lit with my clips and receipts. A director leaned forward and asked about motive. "Motive belongs to them?" I kept eye contact until he blinked. "My goal is containment and disclosure." The room stayed cold and methodical. They moved to budgeting anomalies and private perks. A compliance lead displayed two expense chains. The same charity surfaced beside consulting bills. Names overlapped with off-site reservations and comped travel. My chest tightened as the pattern locked. They scheduled sworn statements for the afternoon. We broke for 10 minutes and regrouped. Security entered and stood behind the chair. "Interim measures effective at noon." The words landed like a fist under the table. The room did not breathe until the lawyer nodded. My phone buzzed in the pouch with urgent vibrations. They released it for a quick check. A message from the client procurement chief flashed. "Expect suspension of services pending verification." I showed it to the room and watched jaws set. They assigned me a liaison and ended the session. In the corridor, I met the investigator again. "We need your raw audio with device metadata." I unlocked a folder and passed the cable across. Numbers rolled as the copy completed. At the elevator, my screen filled with threats. Anonymous accounts warned me to settle or break. I flagged each handle and filed a cyber report. The liaison captured screenshots and time-stamped everything. Noise helps when it proves intent. A uniformed officer met me downstairs for an update. He had pulled footage from the parking lobby. The angle caught the intimidation with perfect clarity. He printed a still frame for my file. The image showed his face mid-snarl. I walked to a notary and swore an affidavit. Every timestamp, every meeting, every delivery. The stamp hit the page with force. I forwarded the scan to 3 separate inboxes. Redundancy turns luck into structure. Near noon, my email pinged with a formal notice. He was placed on leave for policy failures. Travel cards frozen, devices collected, building access revoked. I saved the notice and exhaled once. Then I waited for the next tremor. It arrived as a courier at my friend's door. A glossy envelope with a very large number. Release of claims, non-disparagement, immediate payout. I flipped to the jurisdiction clause and smiled. They tried to force arbitration in a venue we never used. I photographed every page and sent it to counsel. He called while I was still scrolling. Counter with Ho. Using restoration and legal fees. His voice stayed clipped and calm. Decline confidentiality that muzzles you beyond court orders. I walked to their office to return the envelope. The lobby was quiet in the way storms are quiet. I asked the guard to log the delivery. He wrote the time and scanned the barcode. Cameras tracked the movement to a locked chute. On the sidewalk, I received a text from an unknown number, a short video of shredders eating thick bundles. The caption read, "Clean as snow by Friday." My stomach flipped, then cooled. I forwarded it to the liaison with one sentence. We met an hour later in a secured room. Forensics had already imaged the shared drives. Shredding will not help if emails survive. The text slid a report toward me with hashes. My clips matched perfectly, which mattered more than threats. The client issued a press release just after lunch. Suspension became termination for cause. They cited undisclosed relationships and compromised controls. The stock dipped and then flattened. I waited for the counterpunch and kept my head still. It came as a private call from her number. "You went too far and now they watch me." The words tumbled and cut off. I pictured her sitting on our couch with packed boxes. I pushed that image away and focused on next moves. "Document directives and keep copies." My voice stayed low and measured. "Anything that smells like destruction, forward immediately." She drew breath like it hurt. "If I cooperate, will they spare me?" "I cannot promise outcomes." I heard my voice like it belonged to someone else. "I can promise records that show you chose honesty." Silence hummed, then a soft acknowledgement, then nothing. At 3 sharp, external counsel booked me for a deposition. Neutral site recorded 2 hours. I answered in short bursts and let them sit. When they probed intent, I refused adjectives. Facts landed harder than any insult could. Walking out, I spotted him at the curb with 2 men. He wore a brave grin that did not reach his eyes. One of the men held a binder like a shield. He barked into a phone and glared at me. I lifted my camera and did not blink. My attorney joined me from across the street. "We file a restraining request tonight." He had already drafted the paperwork. "This covers stalking allegations and digital harassment." I signed on a bench and checked for tails. We filed at the correct courthouse with supporting exhibits. The clerk reviewed the packet and whistled once. Hearing scheduled for the morning with a temporary order. I felt a small weight lift from behind my ribs. Relief arrived and asked for discipline. Back at my friend S, a new tip hit the secure line. Screenshots of calendar invites labeled mentoring with coded initials. The sender included file paths for archived chat logs. I thanked them through the case portal with a single word. Gratitude works better when it is quiet. I compiled the new pieces into a tight bundle. Each page flowed into the next without commentary. I added the still frame from the lobby. Then I wrote a 1-line summary for leadership. Threats, attempted hush money, possible records destruction. At dusk, my dog nudged my knee and whined. I leashed him and walked a tight square block. Breathing slowed and thoughts aligned into rows. This was not about rage anymore. This was about making their story impossible to fake. The landlord's attorney called while I circled. "Lease restored, status corrected, keys recorded." He emailed the formal confirmation within a minute. I forwarded it to the liaison to note retaliation risks removed. Small steps opened space for larger swings. At 8, her teammate pinged my prepaid with an attachment. Expense approvals with his initials hidden in comments. The metadata showed edits from 3 devices. "If they call me, I was never near you." I sent a thumbs up and purged the thread. I drafted a clean timeline for the district attorney intake. No narrative flourishes, no guesses, just transactions. I attached copies that linked charity events to vendor payments. A triage autoreply assigned a reference string. I pinned it at the top of my screen. Night deepened and messages slowed as people ducked. I used the break to update the archive index. Plenty of lines, no filler, short notations. I closed the box and felt my heartbeat settle. Tomorrow would require sharper edges. Just before midnight, a final message arrived from an internal number. 3 words, then an address, then a time. "Documents, parking level 3, 6 a.m. I stared at it and pictured the trap. I replied with a single instruction for the sender. "Drop in the lobby with the guard, no contact." The typing bubble appeared, then a thumbs up. I set 3 alarms and double-checked the printer logs. This was the moment to stop reacting and start directing. I reached the front desk at 5:58 and nodded once. The guard lifted the logbook and turned it to me. The elevator opened and a courier hustled out. "Package F." "Or security intake?" He slid a heavy envelope across the counter. Behind him, someone watched from the garage ramp, waiting. "Seal it and timestamp." The guard pressed a stamp with a loud thunk. I photographed the entry line and the seal. A shoe scraped near the ramp and paused. I texted the liaison, 1 word, "arrived." A silhouette stepped forward with a casual lean. He wore confidence like armor and scanned the hall. "I will take that delivery." He pointed with 2 fingers and smiled. The guard squared his shoulders and didn't blink. Chain of custody stays here. My voice stayed steady and low. He clicked his tongue and adjusted his cuff. You two love rules until they hurt. A second guard rounded the corner with measured steps. He drifted back toward the ramp and called someone. Plan B, the words floated like a dare. I filmed his retreat and caught a license frame. The elevator doors closed on his glare and my camera. We opened the envelope under the camera bubble. Inside lay phone logs, event lists, and raw exports. The guard logged each item and locked the bin. I signed and snapped the final page. Then I called the district office and read the number aloud. By 7:30 I stood outside the courtroom doors. A clerk called our file and waved us in. He sat 2 rows back with a tight jaw. My attorney handed the judge a still frame. The screen showed a stairwell standoff with perfect angles. Do you fear escalation? The judge watched me and waited. Yes. I kept the answer short and anchored, the order issued with immediate effect and clear restrictions. He inhaled through his nose and stared holes through the table. We left before he could circle the hallway. Outside, my phone pinged with a blast alert. The client named an acting lead and opened a hotline. Employees were urged to preserve communications. The air around the building felt charged like wires. Forensics called with a new finding. Deleted messages sat intact on an older backup. A cross-reference tied them to vendor approvals and private dinners. They asked permission to forward directly to prosecutors. I said yes because momentum favors clean lines. At 10:05, a patrol car rolled past the entrance. 2 officers stepped out and asked for him. He arrived with a smile and started a speech. The cuffs clicked before the sentence could land. He stiffened as cameras flashed from every balcony. I sent the arrest docket to the board liaison. A reply returned with 1 sentence and a period, referral to authorities for fraud and coercion. I stared at the words until my pulse slowed. A pressure I had carried since the chain slid finally loosened. She texted from a new number at noon. Meet outside the notary in 20. I walked there with the envelope copies. She stood small but upright and handed me 2 items. Keys and a signed division draft, clean, brief, enforceable. I cannot fix what I broke. Her eyes stayed on the sidewalk, but I can stop making it heavier. Wind tugged at her hair and she steadied it. Are we done after this? We divide what remains and move forward. The words surprised me by sounding kind. I will not post anything anywhere. She nodded once, then twice, then looked away. She left without turning back and I let her go. An investigator met me at a secured entrance. He carried a canvas folder and a focused stare. The parking drop saved us hours. He opened to the signature page with routing codes. This links the charity reimbursements to the Shell invoices. We recorded a short statement in a quiet room. Only events, only times, only verifiable steps. He nodded at each and marked off boxes. You will be a primary witness if this proceeds. The word witness hit harder than I expected and fit. Afternoon moved like a conveyor belt with checkpoints. HR finalized her demotion with formal language and dates. The landlord posted the corrected lease entry online. The dog dozed at my feet while I scanned confirmations. Peace felt earned but fragile like glass. Near 4, a last message landed from an internal source. 3 attachments, 1 route map, 1 contract. A comment thread showed him coaching her approval phrasing. The timestamps folded into my timeline like teeth. I exported a final package to my offsite vault. A mirror copy went to counsel with an index. My anger by then had cooled into purpose. Revenge stopped feeling like heat and turned into order. That shift is what saved me from becoming them. At dusk, the board chair called with a balanced tone. Your cooperation changed outcomes. No applause, no flattery, just measured respect. We will compensate your costs and protect your position. I thanked them because it mattered and because it closed a loop. I walked past our old door one last time. The deadbolt that excluded me had become background. I touched the frame and felt nothing sharp. I had wanted spectacle when this started. Instead, I got documents, orders, and a life back under my name. Later, I archived the hotel foot. Age to deep storage. I tagged it do not circulate and locked it twice. Some truths work best in courtrooms and ledgers. The rest can sleep where they cannot ruin anyone. I closed the lid and exhaled like a new person. Before midnight, a final ping lit my screen. The district office confirmed receipt of the parking records. A grand jury date floated in draft behind the scenes. My part would be simple and strict. Tell what happened, show proof, leave out the fire. I turned out the light and sat in the quiet. Not triumphant, not broken, just aware. The revenge was never the video or the headline. It was the rules used against the rule breakers. It was walking out with the dog and a clean ledger on my terms.